The Fox sisters, 1848. I promised you a story. These two have garnered so much controversy over the years, but I want to tell you the story the way I've encountered it in several different sources. They were pretty young when this happened. This is the house right here. The house was torn down in, I think it was 1955, and it was transported from its foundation to Lily Dale, where it was set up as a museum. But in 1955, around the same time, it burned down, so that house no longer exists. However, the foundation is still there and is now a religious site. Margaret was 14 years old, Katie was 11. They moved into their new home in March. The first night they were there, they heard knockings. Like that, knockings. They ran down to their father's room, they woke their father up. We hear something, their father said, it's a new house. It's not a brand, it's new to us, it's an old house, it's probably a shingle loose. I'll go out tomorrow, I'll fix the shingle, don't worry about it, go back to bed. Sent the kids back to bed. The next day he goes out, he's working on the shingles. He's knocking. And as he's pounding on the walls were pounding in response. The little girls are bewildered. That night they go back to bed again, thinking the problem is fixed. In the middle of the night, little Kate, 11 years old, wakes up. The temperature had dropped dramatically in the room. She could see her breath. Out of the dark came a spectral hand that touched her on the cheek. The feel of the hand against her cheek frightened her. She screamed. She woke up her sister. They ran downstairs. They woke up their parents. At this point, the house began to vibrate and rumble. The quote right here from Deborah Bloom, author of Ghost Hunters, 2006. Something was trying to beat its way out of the timber. It wasn't coming from one place. It was coming from all over the house. The father was so startled that he went and woke up the neighbors. They had 30 people in the house that night. Little Kate said, I'm going to ask you a question, Mr. Splitfoot, she called him. Mr. Splitfoot. Anybody know the derivation of the word splitfoot? Who do you know has a split foot? The devil. That's right, the devil. Katie perceived this being as being a demonic entity, so she called him Mr. Splitfoot, meaning one with a cleft foot. She said, Mr. Splitfoot, I'm going to ask you a question. If the answer is yes, rap once. If the answer is no, rap twice. They began to get yes, no responses. One of the neighbors said, I got an idea. He wrote out an alphabet on a board. I'm going to touch a letter. When I touch the right letter, knock. So they were able to compose whole sentences. They found out that this was the spirit of a peddler who had come to the house to sell goods. Whoever it was that was in the house, and it may not have been the previous owner, but whoever it was that was in the house at the time, murdered the peddler, took his belongings, his money, dragged his body to the basement and buried it. Now here's where the story gets a little confusing. The next day, in order to disprove the theory, the father went down and started digging. And they dug for hours. They found a small piece of a skull and a few little belongings that might have belonged to a peddler that might not have. Kind of ambiguous. Fame spread rather quickly. All over New York, all over the country. Let me set up a little bit about the 1840s so you understand why this might have happened. Because history, how many know the old story? Those who fail to learn from history are destined to repeat it. Yes. In 1848, people were dying of this. There was no such thing as penicillin. You got the flu in the middle of the wintertime. It was a dangerous thing. Families of 5 and 6 might lose 1 or 2 by the time they reached adulthood. Death was a commonality in 1848. In addition, there were some radical changes in theology. Liberal theologies were taking hold in seminaries. People were beginning to question the authority of the Word of God, of the Bible. They were saying, maybe it wasn't actually written by God. Maybe we really don't know if there is a God. And that was being preached from the pulpit. So people's long-standing religious beliefs were being challenged, just as they are today, by the scientific community. So, in this environment, where people were losing touch with long-held beliefs, where people were losing family members left and right, when a ghost story came along that said, I have tangible proof, because you can hear the rappings on the walls, people clung to it nationwide, and a new religion was born, and the religion was called spiritualism. It very quickly spread around the world. By 1850, it was an international religion. That's how quickly it spread. It was many years later, by the way. I just want to finish the story a little bit. Long after Kate and Margaret passed away, some people were digging in the basement of that old farmhouse. There was a false wall. The wall collapsed. Behind the wall was the skeleton of a peddler with his peddler pack. And the peddler pack is in Lilydale today in the museum for you to go and look at if you so desire. In the fall of 1887, Maggie Fox granted a seance to Dr. Gustav Wixel and his wife. Dr. Wixel never told Maggie who he was, never introduced himself, and he did not have an appointment. As a mentalist, that's significant. I don't have time to do my homework. If I know you're coming, even in the 1800s, if I know who you are and I know you're coming, I've got time to get prepared. Maggie didn't. At once she began to write with both hands, sheet after sheet. This is a quotation, by the way, from Dr. Wixel, who witnessed it himself. Sheet after sheet, very rapidly, tossing them across the table to me. The pages were incomprehensible. She smilingly told me to hold the pages up to a mirror. Then I saw, in my father's peculiar handwriting, a message. You understand that? In other words, it was written in his father's hand. Even if she had time to do the homework, she wouldn't know what his father's handwriting looked like. The information was accurate in every way, and the pages were signed, Your loving father, Gustav Wixel.